This is News 4 Live coverage in Ferguson once again, where we have seen more unrest and violence already tonight.
We have crews in Fort Ferguson, and as you can see, police are advancing down. We believe this is West Florissant. We have reports tonight that Molotov cocktails have been fired at police. We do see smoke. We're not sure. We haven't confirmed whether these are smoke bombs or actual tear gas canisters being launched by police in response to protesters. But again, right now it looks like it's going to be a night of confrontation again in Ferguson.
A reminder, the governor's order extended, the state of emergency extended for tonight. There is a curfew in effect from midnight until 5 a.m. So as we approach the midnight hour, we've had our crews in place, ready and watching to see how demonstrators would perform tonight. Those crews in the field already indicating to us, much as they did last night, that for the most part, demonstrators on the scene told them that they would leave, remain peaceful, while others said they were not certain and perhaps would be staying on again.
Sharon, of interest, I think moments ago on the right side of our screen, we could see a couple of people walking, pedestrians that looked like they had gas masks on in anticipation in case, well, there's another individual with one on there. There's another. I don't know if those are journalists or not, but it looks like clearly there were some people tonight prepared in case tear gas was launched. We have seen that in past nights. There were reports last night that tear gas was launched. There were smoke bombs, we know, launched. Right now we can't tell the difference what is producing that smoke, but we were told that Molotov cocktails were fired at police tonight in Ferguson.
Sharon Reed alongside Steve Savard here in the News 4 studios. Our crews, multiple crews strategically placed in and around Ferguson. Indeed, some on our staff telling us that as they were on the roadways this evening, they saw massive amounts of activity, police activity, seemingly headed towards the Ferguson area.
Now again, the second night of curfew does not begin for about 2.5 hours. Now you were working last night, Sharon. I don't remember seeing this kind of heavy police presence in Ferguson, not at least at 9:30, 2.5 hours before curfew set in, right?
Well, I will say this, as we watched it play out live right here on News 4, hour after hour, we didn't see police activity as far as movement goes until well past the curfew. Remember, Steve, there was that group of demonstrators, the holdout demonstrators, we'll call them, that at about 12:45, 12:48, well past the curfew, they were not budging, even moved their cars into the street. And only then, when police later told us they had to get to a shooting victim urgently, did they launch the smoke bombs first and then the tear gas.
We've had reports earlier today, of course, there was a rally at Grace Church with the Reverend Al Sharpton, other leaders, and the Michael Brown family. Also today, another development today, Attorney General Eric Holder is calling for an independent federal autopsy on Michael Brown, an additional autopsy. And we're told that President Obama, who has been briefed in Martha's Vineyard while on vacation about the situation in Ferguson, will be heading back to Washington, D.C., and will have further meetings with Attorney General Eric Holder tomorrow.
Yeah, that federal autopsy, a very rare move. Chris Stanford, we saw you step in front of the camera moments ago. Bring us up to date.
Sharon and Steve, first let me apologize if my eyes are watering and I might have trouble talking because we experienced a pretty strong dose of tear gas here just a few moments ago. We're at the intersection of Ferguson and West Florissant, right by the McDonald's and the media staging area. We were putting together our report for 10 o'clock and stepped out of the vehicle when we saw the armored vehicles move forward. We were wondering what was going on, stepped out and immediately got hit with that gas. Let me bring you up to date. Let's show you what's going on right here live on West Florissant. You see the police presence. You see them continuing to pursue north on West Florissant. We're not sure why. We're out of the loop. We don't know why they were marching towards us and why they were coming towards us. Like I said,
All right, Chris Stanford, as the picture is frozen right now, again, a very fluid situation in Ferguson right now. Or Chris Stanford says they got no advance warning, the press did, in that staging area, and police, for some reason, working to confirm it right now, did launch gas. He believes perhaps tear gas. He's tearing up. You could see it.
Yeah, I think his eyes are the confirmation here. We weren't sure whether or not smoke bombs or tear gas, but Chris is saying tear gas. Chris has been out in Ferguson for a few nights now covering the story, so we have to assume that it is tear gas at this point. And we don't know really what has led to the latest round of confrontation. Have we reestablished contact with Chris Stanford?
Well, we see the picture getting established right there.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Seen reports, St. Louis County saying they have reports of a shooting, perhaps a shooting victim, minor injuries. Chris, you're back now. Continue.
Yeah, we weren't hearing anything about a shooting. We're a few blocks away from the QT down near Canfield. Up here again, like.
All right, still having trouble with a live picture from Ferguson. As I understand it, these are pictures from last night. Is that right, producer John O'Sullivan? Yeah, this is last night. Sharon, you were working. You saw this picture last night. At what point did you sense last night that there would be confrontations? Was it not until after midnight and the curfew had already kicked in?
Well after midnight, Steve. Police showed what is described by most as enormous restraint. Even those demonstrators who were in the middle of the road, some had moved their cars there, refusing to leave. They did not move in until they acknowledged to us that they had a shooting suspect, a perp, near Red's Barbecue. It's all in the area of the QT there. And that's when they launched the smoke bombs. And then finally, to get to the shooting victim, they launched the tear gas. Back live here. These are live pictures. Ferguson tonight. Sharon Reed alongside Steve Savard. And we have crews throughout the area, crews embedded with police.
Matt Cesny is also covering the story in Ferguson tonight. We're going to go to him for the very latest. Matt, where are you and what are you seeing at this point?
Steve, we are at the Police Command Center, which is at the shopping center just up from West Florissant, from where that Quick Trip is. And I have to tell you, this is the first really tense night we've had here at the Police Command Center, and I'll show you why. I'm stepping aside. We now have a line of police officers in helmets, shields, and gas masks, and they are all facing Lucas and Hunt Road. They're facing the 180-degree opposite from where all the action has been this week. We don't know if any protesters are actually marching up Lucas and Hunt and coming this way, but clearly the police have some intelligence that something may be headed this way, and they are prepared with nightsticks, helmets, and shields. So far, we're not getting any indication as to what is going on, but I can tell you it is very tense up here right now because for the entire week, this has been an area that has been considered a safe zone for police and also for media covering this. And now, for the first time, it seems as if the front lines of this are coming directly right here to our doorstep. We're going to remain here as long as it's safe and bring you live pictures for as long as we can to see what does transpire here. But for now, we have these riot police forming a line in the shopping center on the back end of the Police Command Center in Ferguson. Right now, we're live in Ferguson. Matt Cesny, News 4.
Well, Matt, the key is safe. You have to remain safe. Don't do anything to put yourself or our crews in danger. I know you won't. You're a veteran reporter. You've seen and done it all on the streets. But give us a sense of how many law enforcement officers there are lined up behind you, anticipating any trouble that may be coming toward them. How many are there at this point?
Well, you know, I mean, it could be 100. It's hard to tell once it gets past about 30 feet or so how close shoulder to shoulder they are, but there may be close to 100. And I have to tell you, Steve, they're all different police agencies. We're seeing blue shirts from the Highway Patrol. We're seeing blue shirts from local police. We're also seeing the brown shirts from the county police. I've seen cars pull up from Olivet and St. Charles County. There are officers from all over the St. Louis metropolitan area here forming this line right now, but they stretch clear across this parking lot from where we are on the sidewalk all the way to the wall of that Target department store. As I mentioned, they are not flinching. They are facing forward, holding their batons with their helmets and their shields, and they're also wearing gas masks. So my impression is they are ready to shoot tear gas or release smoke bombs to anybody who tries to infiltrate this police command area, which I mentioned has been considered a safe zone for the entire week.
All right, Matt Cesny reporting there, and we do have crews throughout the area. We should let you know, St. Louis County Police, again, as our reporters are letting us know, reporting Molotov cocktails being thrown at police, tactical units on scene, asking the media to please leave the area. Julian, what can you tell us?
Well, Sharon, yeah, we tried to get closer to the scene, but officers pushed us back. We wanted to stay on top of a hill to give you a better vantage point, but we were told it wasn't safe there, that we needed to get back. We're in the command center by the targets, sort of in the same area as Matt Cesny, but we have a different angle on things, and you can see all the officers out here, as Matt said, from different agencies, the city, this seems to be the county, also troopers out here. They're all decked out with their shields and their riot gear, their helmets, many of them armed with assault rifles as well. So it seems as though they're preparing or staging here for something. We're just still trying to figure out exactly what that is. And we believe this all started to go wrong around 8:30. About an hour ago, St. Louis County PD on their Twitter page sent out a series of tweets saying that they were receiving calls for shots fired in the area of West Florissant and Canfield. That was about an hour ago. And then 40 minutes ago, there were reports that a shooting victim near the Quick Trip was reported, and there were some victims with minor injuries. And then 24 minutes ago, they told us Molotov cocktails were being thrown at police. So that's really when we started feeling that tear gas. And I'm hearing out of one ear that there's seems to be some more tear gas being fired off right now. I'm seeing flashes in the distance. So that's a possibility that they are shooting some more tear gas at potential protesters in that area. We just can't see too much of what's going on near the Quick Trip from where we are, Sharon.
Julian, give us a sense, if you had to guess, how far away are you from what you're hearing and what you're seeing?
Steve, we're going to estimate that's at the Quick Trip, and the Quick Trip is about a half mile to a mile from where we are. And like I said, all that tear gas, we were downwind of that and got all of it. We got quite a bit of that. I mean, as soon as it hits you, your eyes started watering, your nasal passages kind of closed up on you. The best way I can describe it, you're in a room full of onions and there's just, say, 100 people cutting those onions only an inch from your nose. It was unbearable at the time, and we are, as I said, about half a mile to a mile from where they actually shot that off. Yeah,
Matt Cesny, who's very close to you, described the scene as very tense, almost eerie. Is that how you see it?
Exactly. Like I said, these officers, they're standing here, and we're not exactly sure what they're preparing for at this point, but there's just a line of them that got set, I'd say, probably about 40 minutes ago. They came out here, formed a line, they got their masks on, they got their riot gear on, but we don't know exactly which way they're expecting maybe the protesters to go. This command center has sort of been a safe haven from any looters or anything like that. There's been no stores broken in here, so if the protesters were somehow able to gain access to this area, that would be horrendous, I would say. So it seems as though police want to make it a point to keep this area as a safe haven, as I said, to make sure that they at least have their command area to where they can send units in and out.
Julian, you've been on the scene there alongside Matt Cesny, our Chris Stampert, for hours now. I know you had been preparing a report. You've been talking with demonstrators, some telling you they were absolutely planning to abide by the midnight curfew, again in effect for the second night tonight, coming up, looming. Others, though, said they weren't so sure.
Yeah, Sharon, for the most part, I would say, let's say we talked to a good 50 people, I would say, 40 of them were saying that they were going to go home, that there wasn't going to be any issue abiding by that curfew that kicked in at midnight to 5 a.m. They had no issue with going home when officers asked them, or even before officers asked them. We were out there around 7, 8 o'clock, and a lot of people we talked to said that they were already heading out because they didn't want to be around just in case anything went awry. And here we are in that situation. There were people out there that said there was no way that they were leaving when midnight came around. They were dead set on staying, and I'm hearing a lot on the police dispatch out here. There seems to be a lot of screaming. I'm just letting you know exactly what I'm hearing here on scene. But back to the protesters that said they didn't want to go home, there were quite a bit of those people as well. So That could be very well the people that police are battling with now. As I said before, with the shots fired call, police said that there were people throwing Molotov cocktails at them. So it's hard to say. It was a peaceful protest for much of the day. You go out there during the day, and there's no issues. There's none of that. There's people out there shouting, you know, chanting for justice, doing things the right way. But when night falls, it seems as though there's a different crowd, a different dynamic sort of takes over, and those people who really want to see mayhem, they kind of come in and take over.
Yeah, Julian, what's really kind of ominous tonight is that we're, as I mentioned to Sharon, we're 2 hours and 20 minutes before even the start of curfew. The hostilities, for lack of a better term here, started after curfew last night. So unfortunately, it looks like we might have a confrontation well before even curfew kicks in. And, you know, this flies, we have to say this, it flies in the face of everything that the family of Mike Brown has been saying since he was shot, since last Sunday night and the looting really began. Everything, it flies in the face of all the local and national leaders who have come in. They've been calling for peace over and over and over. And again, we realize this is a small percentage of people causing the mayhem and challenging authority here, but nonetheless, it flies in the face of exactly what the family of Mike Brown wants.
The family, as you said, local and national politicians. Matt Cesny, go.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Go ahead, Matt. I thought you started to say something.
I'm right here, Sharon. Yeah. No, I mean our proximity to the police officers here gives us the chance to hear a lot of what's going on in the police radios, and we are once again hearing a call of shots fired down on West Florissant. I have to say these officers did not flinch upon hearing that. The police helicopter is up and is circling, as Julian said, about a half mile down West Florissant to that area near the Quick Trip. But also to finish the point about the small element that is causing all the criminal activity down here. That was addressed today at a rally, which I have a piece I can show you later in the newscast. Al Sharpton was speaking to that and made the urgent plea not to do the violence, not to loot in Mike Brown's name, but to peacefully protest and to be loud while doing it. It doesn't seem as if that message has reached everyone. I'm going to step aside here as another bunch of vehicles approach this police line. It is some reporters flashing their police ID badges, and they are being turned away into this area. So that line is not going to be broken by anyone, whether it be a credentialed media person or a citizen. And then behind that, we have a couple police vehicles. I can see some officers in bulletproof vests starting to go, and they are going to proceed through the police line and into the command center.
Are they on us?
No. One more vehicle, and that's it, and then the line will close again. And so that's where we're at this point. There's clearly a defensive position by these police officers, and again, Julian's at the other end of the line, closer to the target, but you know, what they're waiting for, we don't know, but clearly they are here for a reason and taking a defensive position right now. Back to you guys.
Has anything changed, Matt, in terms of what you can see or hear? I know Julian was telling us just moments ago he could hear someone screaming, he thought, through a police scanner. Has anything changed from what you can see or hear from your vantage point there?
No, it's been quiet since then, and as Julian mentioned, about 40 minutes ago we could see the plumes of smoke and tear gas about a half mile away, and of course the way the wind's blowing tonight, that came right over and settled in on us. But right now I can't see anything in that direction over the sky. Again, these officers do have their shields down, but they are continuing to face towards Lucas and Hunt and towards that entrance off Lucas and Hunt into this shopping center. So we will continue to wait here with them and see what happens. And as soon as something happens, we certainly will bring it to you live.
All right. Matt Cesny reporting for us. Julian Johnson's on scene. Our Chris Stanford is there as well. I'm Sharon Reed alongside Steve Savard in the News 4 studios. Already tonight, if you're just joining us, the violence, the unrest, it started early. Last night it started after curfew, that you watched it play out live here. But tonight already, Molotov cocktails, reports of shots fired, a shooting victim, tear gas canisters launched, including with members of the media hit. The activity began, our Julian Johnson reported, around 8:30 tonight, well before the governor's midnight curfew. This is video taken a short time ago. As you can see, the plumes of smoke there, the tear gas launch, and members of the media got no heads up as police moved in and launched those canisters.
Yeah, and you have to bear with us because we're seeing this video, most of it, for the first time as you are. So we're trying to sort through and figure out exactly what we're seeing. We have mentioned, look, they may be journalists with gas masks on. They certainly came prepared for the possibility of tear gas. We wondered if it was tear gas or smoke bombs being set off. I think Chris Stanford earlier pretty much confirmed tear gas, and that's pretty much what Matt Cesny and Julian Johnson said they were sensing as well from their position. So, again, a heavy police presence, the hostilities beginning earlier than last night, the curfew, second night of curfew, not set to begin for another 2 hours and roughly 14 minutes. And these are scenes along West Florissant. We have 3 crews. Chris Stanford is there, also Matt Cesny and Julian Johnson. We are going to keep you up to date, minute by minute, on what's going on. Heavy police presence, and again, the second night of curfew not set to begin until midnight.
Yeah, and we're working here at News 4 to try to confirm or try to assess the level of police activity here. Are there more? Is there a greater tactical response tonight as opposed to other nights? We can tell you that one of our News 4 photographers spotted SWAT vehicles headed towards Ferguson. They were coming from St. Charles County. Again, back to the live pictures, our Matt Cesny, Julian Johnson, Chris Stanford, all of them right there. They've been talking to demonstrators all night. Our Julian Johnson reporting that he spoke to at least 50 people. Most, 40, I think he said, Steve,
yes,
said they would abide by the curfew, which is, as you remarked, is still 2+ hours away. But there were a few who said they weren't certain if they would. As we continue to look at the live pictures and the violence, the police activity, it has started early tonight.
Yeah, Chris Stanford is very near this scene we're looking at with live pictures. Chris, what can you tell us since we talked to you last?
Steve, just to kind of recap, we're here on the corner of Ferguson and West Florissant, right across the street from the McDonald's and the media staging area. Looking north on West Florissant as that police line continues to push forward towards the QT. It came through our area a few minutes ago. We were hit with a few rounds of tear gas. I've never felt tear gas before, but my eyes and throat and all that were clearly irritated, and everyone around me was feeling the same effects. So when we were here, they set up this police line right on Ferguson in West Florissant, and we even saw them fire a few rubber or wooden bullets at a couple of demonstrators, at least one demonstrator. One journalist came up to me and said that he was hit right near the throat with one of those projectiles. He came up and told me that. I wasn't able to confirm yet if police, however, did fire any projectiles at that journalist, but we did see them fire on a civilian who was laying down in the street, refusing to move, as they were shouting orders over the loudspeaker, telling the protesters to clear the area or they will be removed and arrested. Again, we're watching live pictures unfold here, staring north down West Florissant. I think you can see the haze of smoke in the distance as those police lights are flashing, and that is down near the QT, where really ground zero is of this entire situation.
So, Chris, your picture, and I'm going to set the stage here for our viewers, is on the right side of the screen. Now we're full screen with the picture that the action you're describing. How far have law enforcement officers and those armored vehicles advanced just in the time we began talking to you? How far down West Florissant have they gone?
I'd have to say about a quarter of a mile or so. The law enforcement staging area is up near the Target, and when we first saw them, they were just south of Ferguson on West Florissant, and since then they've gone north a few blocks, which I would say is about a quarter of a mile at this point.
If you're just joining us, let's give you the timeline. At about 8:30 tonight, early, our Julian Johnson reported that there was increased police activity, increased activity from demonstrators on the scene. Then at about 9 p.m., a code 2000 went out over the police scanners. In essence, what that means is they were looking for some 50+ officers to respond to the scene, and then shortly after 9, between 9 and 9:30, tear gas launched And already tonight, Molotov cocktails, reports of those being launched, thrown at police, a shooting victim, and tear gas canisters fired by police. Let's go to Matt Cesny, who's standing by near this scene. Matt, what can you tell us? You have new information.
Talking with a source connected to law enforcement, and that this, as we suspected, this line of officers appears to be a defensive position right now. Apparently police have put these defensive positions up completely around the perimeter of the command center. When the trouble initially broke out on West Florissant, we understand, a group of several hundred protesters started making their way up West Florissant towards this command center, and I guess that's when all the trouble started, and that's when the police response started. So as a precaution, police now have this perimeter set up completely around the police command center here, just as a precaution and just as a defensive position. At this point, it does not appear as if any protesters are coming up Lucas and Hunt to face off with these police right now, but certainly they are ready for anything, as we are ready for anything, and we'll remain here and watch them to see what happens, for two reasons: just because we want to see what happens, and the other reason is we really can't get out of here right now to go into other places. We are kind of in a lockdown position right now.
You're locked down for you're locked down for your own safety, right, Matt? I mean, they don't want you going anywhere right now.
Well, yeah, that's right, and Right, and Julian had mentioned that when he tried to exit here to get a better view of West Florissant, and he was turned away and brought back here. So at this point, we are seeing some police vehicles returning to the command center. I don't know if that's an indication that things are calming down right now down along West Florissant, but it's certainly a possibility with more police vehicles returning to the area so far. But we'll continue to monitor the situation and bring you the latest as we get it.
All right, Matt, we're going to stay with you, but in the meantime, a live picture, West Florissant at Canfield. Our Chris Stanford is standing by there. And Chris, as Matt Cesny said, there's this police barrier around the command center. Where you are, I know you were preparing a report for us for our 10 o'clock newscast. Is there the same tactical plan tonight as they had last night?
What they were telling me is that's the same game plan. They were going to do last night, or they were going to do tonight what they were doing last night if they feel they needed to do that. If the demonstrators disobeyed the curfew and refused to move and became agitated at all, then they were going to move in just as they did last night. But obviously that came much quicker than it unfolded last night. We're not even close to the curfew at this point. Right where I'm at Ferguson and West Florissant, we're not really seeing much right by us at this point. This situation has moved further to the north down West Florissant, up near that Canfield area by the QT and that barbecue place, and it continues to push further north. So where we're at, there's one SWAT vehicle right next to us. I don't know if our photographer Chris Stoley could pull out and move the camera to the left to show this action that you're seeing live right here. The SWAT unit just unloaded a group of riot officers, some officers in riot gear. They're heading on Ferguson. This is right at the media staging area. This is the safe area where the journalists are supposed to stay when the curfew is enacted, so that we stay out of harm's way and are able to document the situation. And you see those officers in that tactical unit moving west on Ferguson Avenue from West Florissant.
Are police making any announcements? I know last night both you and Chris Negus reported that they were on the loudspeaker, that they were instructing demonstrators to disperse. I know we've not yet met the curfew, midnight, but are police saying anything?
Yes. When that line of armored vehicles came through, it was clear over the loudspeaker that they were telling people to disperse and to leave the area, or they were going to be removed and face possible arrest. We have not seen anyone taken into custody. As I said just a short time ago, we have seen at least one demonstrator who appeared to be shot by some sort of rubber bullet, or it might have been one of those wooden pellets. He was laying down in the road, refusing police orders to vacate the premises.
Chris, can you give us an estimate? How many vehicles are in use here in West Florissant by law enforcement? How many armored vehicles? And what's a rough guess at how many officers, law enforcement officers, you see right now around and behind those vehicles?
I would say roughly a half dozen vehicles and a few dozen officers.
And Chris, you mentioned arrest as we work to determine if anyone's been arrested on this scene with the unrest, the violence tonight. We can report that overnight 7 people facing charges now for failure to disperse from this scene. And you watched it play out live right here on News 4. Police arrested 7 people, those holdout demonstrators who refused to go home after the curfew.
The other thing that we should mention is that according to St. Louis County Police last night, although there was a shooting victim who as of this afternoon was in critical condition still, St. Louis County Police say that no law enforcement officers fired any shots. So don't know who shot the victim. St. Louis County is heading that investigation. I believe that shooting was at Red's Barbecue last night.
John, I have...
But St. Louis County Police saying that no law enforcement officer last night shot any bullets, and Chris Stanford has more information now. Chris, what do you have?
Yeah, I actually talked to the State Patrol about that earlier today, and what they told me about that shooting that happened last night, that happened just before 1 o'clock in the morning, well past the curfew, was that one person was critically wounded by a gunshot. But the state troopers are telling us they're not sure where exactly that gunfire came from, because that man's friend, his friends ended up driving him to the hospital, and they were not being cooperative with authorities, so they're not sure at this point. Authorities aren't sure exactly where those shots were fired and what the circumstances were, but they told me without any doubt in their mind that they did not fire any bullets at those demonstrators last night, and they're not sure where that gunfire came from. That's something that they're working to figure out and continue to investigate. And they also told us that that man shot was from St. Louis. He was not from Ferguson, that he was from St. Louis.
Yeah, Chris, given the circumstances, it may be a while before St. Louis County police get to the bottom of who shot the victim and solve that investigation. But right now, Sharon, there's news of another shooting.
And there is news, reports of shots fired. This is from the St. Louis County Police Department, West Florissant and Solway. They're asking people, perhaps members of the media as well, to leave the area immediately. Shots fired at West Florissant and Solway. Chris Stanford, what can you tell us about that? Have you heard anything from law enforcement, who are obviously engaged at this point?
I haven't heard anything about a shooting, and I'm trying to figure out where exactly that is, so we can get a better grasp.
Well, Chris, let me just tell you, our producer John O'Sullivan is telling us it's a couple of blocks away from where Chris Stanford is right now. From Canfield. It's a couple of blocks away from Canfield.
Okay, that would be about roughly a quarter mile to a half a mile away from where we are, up closer to the QT, and then you have to take Canfield off to the east. So that's what I could tell you about that. I did hear from an officer who told me that that line of armored vehicles and those police officers started moving north on West Florissant because a group of people moved in his words, on the police command post, and that's why they responded. And that was from a law enforcement officer here on the scene that I talked to directly, saying that that crowd of people moved towards the police command post, and that was then their response. That's when those armored vehicles came. That's when the tear gas was deployed, and that's when some of those rubber bullets or wooden bullets were fired, and we heard some of those flash bombs go off, and we've heard some of that noise that they put out to try to deter people and disperse them to try to get them home and off the streets.
So the noise canisters you're referring to, Chris Stanford, I want you to
flash
really...
bombs, yes.
I want you to set the scene. How quickly did things deteriorate here? I know you and Chris Negus were both right there last night for hours. Said at one point at least you got a little heads up as police walked by and said gas, gas. Did you have any indication that they were about to launch tear gas canisters?
I didn't hear anything, but then again, I wasn't outside on the streets, as were the demonstrators. We parked our truck right across from the media staging area, so we weren't in that staging area. We're inside the vehicle. I didn't even notice this line of armored vehicles come up. I mean, given they're dark vehicles and it's dark outside, I didn't notice anything until they were probably 100 feet away from us. I mean, they were right at this intersection that I'm staring at right now, and I estimate it was about 100 to 150 feet away before I saw the armored vehicles, and then I saw that tear gas being deployed and those flash bombs going off. We're standing on the sidewalk, and the flash bombs were going off right in the street, and that's where the tear gas was being deployed. It was being deployed in some of the parking lots of the businesses that line West Florissant. So, I mean, that's what I saw. It happened very quickly, Sharon and Steve.
All right, thank you, Chris Stanford, who's at West Florissant and Ferguson, looking north up West Florissant and Canfield. That's the intersection we're looking at there with armored vehicles and police behind there. Julian Johnson is closer to the police command center and has some new information. Julian? Well, we're looking at massive police presence near the police command center where our Julian Johnson and both Matt Cesny are as well.
If you're just joining us, Sharon Reed alongside Steve Savard inside the News 4 studios. Our crews are throughout Ferguson again tonight where the unrest, it began early. A code 2000 went out at 9 p.m., but a half an hour before that, our crews in the field reported seeing the activity, the unrest, Molotov cocktails thrown at police. That report, shots fired, a shooting victim, tear gas finally launched. Our crews affected. Let's go to Julian Johnson. I hear you, Julian. What do you have?
As I was telling you before, in regards to these ambulances, there's about 6 or 7 of them positioned here in the command center. They haven't taken off down to the area of Canfield and West Florissant, so we'll take that as a good sign that there's no type of further shootings that are going on right now. But when we got that report about 13 minutes ago of shots fired, we did see quite a bit of movement from some officers in the complex here. There was a series of St. Louis City police officers that were in cars, and there were another group of officers on foot sort of running toward West Florissant from where I could see. So officers here are still trying to get a really good fix on exactly what's going on and where they need to go. There's still this huge line of officers lining the Target parking lot here at the command center. As Matt said, this may just be a defensive position. They're not expecting any type of attack here, but they just want to be in place in the event something happens.
Julian Johnson reporting from the area of the police command center along West Florissant in Ferguson. This is News 4 at 10. Steve Savard alongside Sharon Reed. We want to welcome our viewers from Kansas City watching us on KCTV as we give you the very latest events here in Ferguson tonight. A couple of reports of shootings tonight, Molotov cocktails fired at police officers at 9 o'clock, a call of code 2000 going out, a call for 50 or so police officers to reinforce the situation in Ferguson. Let's go to Matt Cesny right now. Matt?
Yeah, Steve, we just moments ago we saw about 6 or 7 St. Louis City police SUVs come pulling in. Officers getting out in a very relaxed way and talking and chatting, and this line of officers behind me have now removed their gas masks. So there seems to be a little bit of the tension let out that was here probably about 20 minutes ago. They remain here holding the line, but clearly they're in a much more relaxed position than they were, as I mentioned, about 20 minutes ago when it appeared that we might see protesters marching from any direction here on the police command center. So I can take that as good news because I can hear them chatting and talking now, and as I mentioned, their gas masks are off. So, but the line continues to remain here. The perimeter continues to be around the police command center because, as we mentioned, when the trouble broke out, some of those marchers, several hundred, were coming up West Florissant Avenue and actually heading towards the police command center when police took their response that they did. But these officers do remain here. They have this area surrounded. We're locked in here. We'll keep reporting to you what we see, what we hear, and even what we smell in the air, whether even more smoke bombs or tear gas is fired. Steve?
Matt, thank you. Before we let you go, again, you made the point. This is not one law enforcement group here. You see the brown shirts of St. Louis County Police, the blue shirts of the Missouri Highway Patrol, and the blue shirts of the St. Louis City Police, correct?
Correct. You name the municipality, you name the police agency in eastern Missouri, and they seem to be here tonight. I can look around and see Berkeley and Olivet. I did see some St. Louis County police from the Wildwood precinct, which is pretty far away in St. Louis County from where we are in Ferguson. Yeah, you name it. Officers are here. So, you know, obviously all these municipalities in St. Louis County, even St. Charles County, assisting the Missouri Highway Patrol in trying to control this situation tonight.
And to give you an indication, Matt, of just how many agencies, police agencies, are at the ready to respond, a Code 2000, it's called, went out at 9 p.m. Asking for 50+ more officers to get to the scene to assist, to back up in Ferguson tonight. We've heard the Code 2000 for the past several days, several times. We've been monitoring scanners, our crews in the field with their ear and eyes to the ground. This is video from earlier tonight. If you're just joining us, you're watching News 4 at 10 live coverage in Ferguson, but this is video. Police launching tear gas, Molotov cocktails had been thrown at authorities. Those are the reports. Our reporters on the ground affected by the police response, the tear gas, shots fired, a shooting victim. All of this going down within the past hour.
Yeah, that video was about, Sharon, I want to say it was about 35 minutes ago. When police were first advancing past Chris Stanford's position. Now they've gone all the way down, seem to be stopped in the area of West Florissant and Canfield, about a quarter mile away from our cameras and from where Chris Stanford is reporting. So about a quarter mile in 35 minutes, but they seem to have stopped in the last 10-15 minutes at that intersection at Canfield and West Florissant. I don't know if that's good news, but again, from the scene where Matt Cesney's reporting the command center 20 minutes ago, there was a line of officers not speaking, all lined up. It seemed like a tense situation. They seem to be more relaxed with body language and talking more right now.
Matt Cesney, where he is, he showed us, he talked about that police barrier, a human barrier being formed around the command center. Also the tactical plan, as we continue to look at the live pictures, our Chris Stanford on the scene on West Florissant approaching Canfield told us that police indicated to him tonight that it would be the same tactical plan as last night. However, the activity started much earlier tonight.
These are live pictures. Again, you have to bear with us. We are seeing some of this video, some of these live pictures for the first time at the same time you are at home. We're trying to make out what's going on the left there. At the right, that's the police line where Matt Cesney is reporting at the command center, which has been, you know, a safe haven in the past 9 days. The scene seems to be less tense, less formal. The police officers have broken ranks a little bit in that line at this point. And Matt Cesney has not seen any advance by any protesting group, and he has not seen or heard anything that would indicate that a group of protesters is approaching that position.
So yesterday, the big news of the day, the governor indicating there would be a curfew set from midnight to 5 a.m. This is night 2 as we approach the midnight hour. And there was other news, the prosecuting attorney Bob McCullough indicating he would convene a grand jury in the Michael Brown shooting investigation in a matter of days. And then today, we've learned that Attorney General Eric Holder has ordered a federal independent autopsy on Michael Brown. And that's a very rare move. On the same day, Steve, there was yet another rally. Al Sharpton, once again, stepping before crowds, talking about that surveillance footage that Ferguson police released last week that so many found controversial, purportedly showing Michael Brown involved in a robbery minutes before his death, even though the Ferguson police chief, Tom Jackson, said it had nothing to do with the shooting death.
You know, this is video again of the police advance within the last 35-40 minutes down West Florissant. Sharon, you were talking about Attorney General Eric Holder. The president has been vacationing in Martha's Vineyard over the weekend. Eric Holder was there for some time brief, talking with him about the situation in Ferguson. The president is going to is making his way back to the White House tomorrow. He'll be in more meetings with Attorney General Eric Holder about the situation. And speaking of attorneys general, the Missouri Attorney General, Chris Koster, was in town as well, speaking in Ferguson. You mentioned Al Sharpton. Chris Koster was here. The governor has been here all weekend. The governor made several appearances on national over the network and cable shows today. Again, this is front page news and lead story material not only here in St. Louis, Missouri, but across the country right now.
We're going to stay with the pictures once again from Ferguson tonight, video right now, but we're going to show you more live pictures. And at the same time, we're working to bring you some of the sounds from today, Sharpton and Koster, so that you can hear that as it plays out over these live pictures. There were calls for peace once again. Michael Brown's family says this is not in keeping with their son's memory.
That's a live picture of the police command center where Matt Cesny and Julian Johnson are nearby. And again, you see helmets have been taken off. This is a far different picture than we saw 35, 40 minutes ago when we first connected with Matt Cesny. And he said it was a very tense, almost an eerie atmosphere there. But more relaxed right now. Matt says they don't see any advance of protesters near that area. And again, Chris Stanford reporting about a quarter-mile away from where the armored vehicles seem to have stopped in the last 20 minutes, the intersection of West Florissant and Canfield near the QT, which really has become ground zero for the protests in the past 9 days.
I want to bring in Trooper Wheatley from the Missouri Highway Patrol on the phone right now for us. Trooper, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Talk to us, if you can, about the flurry of activity that we saw not long ago. Tear gas launch, Molotov cocktails reportedly thrown at police. Talk to us about that activity and what's going on right now.
Basically, the way it started is we had a group of aggressors who were approaching our command center, and we have intersections blocked off with entrance to this where emergency vehicles, media, and stuff are allowed to enter. They were ordered several times to vacate, in which they ignored those orders and then began throwing Molotov cocktails at the officers assigned to those posts. At that time, they called for assistance. We sent other officers in, and they continued to advance. And then we had to deploy some smoke and some OC tear gas to try to push them back to keep them from approaching in.
Trooper, we've heard there are reports of 2 different rounds of shooting. Can you confirm that and other reports?
I've heard those reports, but at this time we've been unable to confirm them. I know that we do have officers out there, and when things settle down just a little bit, hopefully we can get some confirmation on exactly what took place out there.
What is, if you could summarize, what is the strategy tonight? What are you in the midst of right now, and what is the big picture in terms of law enforcement right now, just a little after 10 o'clock on Sunday night?
Obviously, our intent is not near what is taking place. We were hoping that we would have a situation much like last night with very little violence, very little protest, let everyone protest peacefully, and then leave for the curfew with no major incidents. But that hasn't happened now.
How about right now? Do police hold their ground, or would police continue to advance, perhaps, and even though we're not up against the curfew right now, clear the streets because of all the violence?
Right. Our mission right now is try to restore peace and order amongst the groups. We know that we have peaceful protesters who are out there wanting to protest peacefully, which we're all in favor of. You know, we have the right to do that, and we encourage that. It's the few, that the aggressors that are taking this situation, this event, and trying to escalate that in their favor to bring destruction to the community. These are mainly outsiders who are coming in and destroying this peaceful community.
Why increase the presence of law enforcement at the command center? Did you fear at some point protesters would approach and overrun that area?
We never, there's always that fear that they might try to do that. But most of the peaceful ones, they're not going to try to do that. They're going to protest peacefully. They know we're here to help them. They're the ones in the community crying for or calling for peace to come back. They're tired of this destruction of their community, and that's what we're here for. We're here to try to help that. But we have these aggressors that are not allowing us to give the community back to these citizens. And they're continuing to incite violence and destruction among them, and that's what we need to stop. So we're basically calling for the community to help get these people out of here so we can restore this peace.
Corporal Wheatley, last night we watched as there were peacekeepers on the scene. They had on black shirts that said peacekeeper on them, and they were working to keep the demonstrators peaceful. But it does seem, you talk about a few who are bent on more violence, unrest. The few, it seems, as we've watched these images play out over and over, it seems night after night for hours on live television, the few have hijacked this scene and even the city of Ferguson.
Right, and as you noticed, the protests throughout the day and stuff seem to be very peaceful. That's when most of the community is out here. They're rallying together in support so they can, they can do their grieving, they can do their protesting, and they have the right to do that. That's why we live in this great nation. However, we have these few that we see time and time again all over the U.S. who take advantage of a very bad situation to try to fuel it and try to push against the police or whoever it may be that's out there. And that's what we need to stop. And unfortunately, they've embedded themselves into these peaceful protesters to where, we can't, it's hard for us to advance on them. And we're trying what we can. That's the reason we're trying to turn around to the community and ask for their assistance. It's them. They know who these people are. They can report them to us, or they can try to get them out.
Corporal Wheatley, in the last 45 minutes, we have seen armored vehicles and law enforcement officials advancing up West Florissant. That procession seemed to come to a stop 25 minutes ago. Can you update us on that situation, what they're looking at, what they're facing, and maybe what they've accomplished in the last 45 minutes?
Well, at this time, we're just trying to move the area. We're trying to get them to disperse and try to restore order. As far as the tactics and stuff that's going on in that area, we're leaving that up to the commanders that are on the ground. They're there. They see what's going on and what they need to do. So whatever tactics they are using, they're calling the shots down there with the commanders, and we have command that's watching over that to make sure that everything flows good and fluent.
I guess before we turn you loose, and we appreciate your time and filling us in, Corporal Justin Wheatley of the Missouri State Highway Patrol, obviously your message is to stay off the streets and abide by the curfew, which begins in about an hour and 45 minutes, but there's really no reason at any point for anybody to be on the streets of Ferguson right now.
Right. No, we ask that everybody to stay off the streets, stay home. There's nothing to see down here. We, stay home, watch on TV, because the more people that comes in here, the harder it's going to be, and the more chance they have of being hurt. And that's the problem with these aggressors. They don't care who they are.
You're asking.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Corporal. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you're asking people to stay off the streets. But if they do come to that area, you're not precluding them from demonstrating. Is that correct?
Right. Anybody has a right to demonstrate. The curfew's not till midnight. We're not going to prevent people from demonstrating. So we do have to protect the innocent people out here in this community and these businesses. That's what we've been tasked with. So we will do what's necessary to try to destruction of these businesses and to protect the innocent citizens who are out here against these aggressors who don't care about innocent lives.
Corporal Wheatley, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Thank you for filling us in.
Thank you.
All right, that's Corporal Justin Wheatley. We certainly appreciate his time. The Missouri Highway Patrol. Now, he's not at liberty, obviously, to discuss tactics, but clearly I think that law enforcement have made progress here in turning away a possible threat of advancing toward the command center where Matt Cesny and Julian Johnson have been reporting from. Those lights, those flashing lights, have pretty much been stuck in the same area around Canfield and West Florissant now. Not stuck, I say stationary, for the past 30 minutes.
But as these images play out once again live, right here on News 4, other outlets around the world, you have to wonder if they'll try a different tactical response as a few bent on more than peaceful demonstrations continue to hijack things, hijack the city of Ferguson. Chris Stanford is standing by live for us once again. Our crews are throughout the area. Chris, bring us up to date.
Another tactical unit just headed north on West Florissant towards that QT. That's the one you're seeing right now in the middle of your screen, the live picture right here on KMOV News 4. We just saw a couple of county squad cars push forward north again right before that. So I'm not sure what they're responding to at this point, but continued police presence up there towards that QT, adding to the police presence here on West Florissant. We're stationed right across from the media staging area at Ferguson and West Florissant, right across that McDonald's that you might have heard of earlier in the week, where two reporters were arrested That was a reporter from the Washington Post and the Huffington Post were arrested at that McDonald's for not leaving, and were detained by authorities and were later let go. Just to give you a frame of reference where we're at, we're staring zoomed in pretty tight on that police scene, which at my estimate is about a quarter mile from where we are. If at all, they've just advanced slightly. They were advancing at a pretty a good clip when we noticed them here up by Ferguson in West Florissant. We want to show you some video of that initial confrontation when we were made aware of this police presence as those armored vehicles pushed north on West Florissant and caught some, this right here is probably our most compelling video. You're seeing that man shot there by a rubber bullet right in front of our cameras. That was moments after we were made aware of anything. That was right when the tear gas was being deployed. We stepped out of our vehicle. We were inside the vehicle, didn't have any advanced warning that we could hear as we were working to repair a report for News 4 at 10. And then all of a sudden, they were 100 to 150 feet in front of us, telling demonstrators out here on West Florissant to get out of the road, warning them that if they did not disperse, that they would be arrested or removed. And then we saw those rubber bullets being fired. A man who came up to me and identified himself as a journalist showed me the spot right next to his neck, kind of between his neck and his shoulder, right on his collarbone where he was hit by what he said was a rubber bullet fired by the police here on the scene. I haven't been able to confirm. I did not see him get shot, but that's what he told me happened to him. And it's just... I want to tell you another interesting point that we noticed here. I've been here on the scene for the past few days, and I noticed something about the crowds out here, that they were larger today. The rain kept them away for the most part, I believe, yesterday evening. And the streets, as you were trying to drive down, up and down West Florissant, which is shut off at two major crossroads, but as we were driving through West Florissant, the crowds were much more present tonight on West Florissant. And while we were driving through in our live truck, some of them actually hopped onto our van and started shaking the vehicle as we were slowly trying to drive through, and they eventually jumped off of the van. So it's been one of those nights here.
Well, Chris, I would be foolish for me or anyone else to paint what we're seeing as calm, but you know, compare and contrasting what we saw almost an hour ago when we first checked in with you. At that point, the police line was advancing. There was smoke in the air. Obviously, tear gas canisters had been fired. It was on the heels of, as you said, you know, rubber bullets or the wooden bullets being fired at people. The scene seems to be much calmer than it was. We're not seeing those kind of pictures, and through your live shot here in the studio, we're not hearing the kind of sounds we were hearing 45 minutes to an hour ago.
You're absolutely right, Steve, and let me give you a sense of how calm it is up here at this intersection at Ferguson and West Florissant, right across from the media staging area. It's all quiet here. There's no action where we're at right now until you get a quarter mile north, right in front of the QT up at Canfield in West Florissant. But they pushed through, and they moved through, like I said a little bit ago, at a pretty good clip, advancing this way towards QT from down by the police staging area. So right here, it's all quiet right now. We haven't heard any of those flash bombs or any of those canisters of smoke being deployed or anything like that. There's very little police presence up here at this intersection at this point.
Chris Stanford reporting for us. Matt Cessny is also at the police staging area, the command center. Our Julian Johnson there as well. If you're just joining us on News 4 at 10, I'm Sharon Reed alongside Steve Savard. And let's bring you up to date. Already tonight, protesters reportedly throwing Molotov cocktails at police, rubber bullets fired by police, shots fired, a shooting victim, tear gas launched, the media affected by some of that tear gas, and the action, Steve, it began early at about 8:30 tonight, not even close to the midnight curfew.
Should be said, the police sources say the first shooting victim apparently had minor injuries. Since then, there has been a second report of shots fired. Julian Johnson is right behind that line of police officers you see protecting the what's been the police command center. Julian, what's the latest from your position?
Well, Steve, while these officers are a little bit more relaxed, some of them taking off their helmets and shields, it doesn't mean that they're not prepared. There was just a few minutes ago a car that wasn't marked. It didn't seem to be media or anything like that. It was unmarked, and it drove up just a few lanes away from where this front line is. And you could see the officers ready to go. Many of them taking out their guns, rifles, pointing it at that car. They didn't make any announcements to move, but the driver obviously got the message that, you know, they shouldn't be in this area. Target, this whole plaza is closed, so there was really no reason for them to be in here. If it was media, they didn't let themselves be known as that, and they drove off. But that sort of just speaks to exactly how at the ready these officers here are. They're definitely not allowing anyone to get behind this line. That's why we're stationed where we are right now. They really don't want us stepping outside of the command center itself. They're still telling us that it's not as safe as they want it to be, so they want us to stay in here. So we're kind of pinned in, would be the best way to describe it. But with speaking with a lot of people that were in the crowds today, as I said before, a lot of them told me that they were going to head out well before that 12 o'clock curfew, but there's still those few that stuck around. There were I spoke with some people from the Peacekeepers group who told us how they were going to try to reason with a lot of these people. They were able to get a lot of people out early last night, but there was still those few that they couldn't convince. I talked to one of the gentlemen today, and he told me that he was really going to make a push to get everyone out of there by midnight, but even this, it turned around at 8:30, so it was very much earlier than what we saw last night, guys.
Julian, how many are you in an area where there? I know Matt says he's not too far. Are you in an area where there are a lot of journalists? Are there any other civilians walking around, or is it pretty much News 4 crews, the police, and the police line there?
Yeah, we'll sort of show you a little bit of exactly what we see. So here's the police line on one side, but on the other side, you'll see some journalists here. I'm not sure who everyone is, but the majority of people in this plaza are either journalists or they're officers. They're not allowing really anyone, especially at this hour, who may be just a civilian, to come in here and hang out, because you have a lot of officers in this area. So if you simply just look to the right, you can see everything that they're doing. So they don't want to give away any secrets, obviously, to the public who may just sort of drift in here. They have a lot of areas cordoned off, so you're not even able to get in, but it's mainly just journalists and officers in here at this point. And from what I've seen, there are even some journalists who have come out here with gas masks. There were some that I saw that had bulletproof vests on. There were some that had Army-style helmets on, just in the event that a stray bullet or something like that came this way. As I said before, we got a whole ton of tear gas that came this way, so those that had been prepared with some sort of gas mask didn't have to worry about that, but others, yes, it definitely hit us pretty hard.
All right, our Julian Johnson reporting for us.